There have been some false rumors circulating out there, and I want to set the record straight. People have said online that I make good videos. To make sure that everyone knows the truth about how I make videos, the goal of this video is to explain my process so you'll know what not to do. I'm also sharing it. If I ever record videos far enough in advance that somebody else could edit them, they'll know what the heck everything is and all this craziness that goes into my process. The first step is to write a script. I typically do this as a Google Doc. Eventually, this script will become the caption file for the video. More on this at the end. So the goal is to write down every word that you're going to say. While it's a little extra work, I think it's worth it because A, you get nice captions at the end, B, you can record more quickly, C, it typically means that there's less time editing later. This is because if you try to...
We'll do it live. Okay.
You end up realizing that you said something wrong, or you think of a new thing that you want to say, and it's hard to add that in on the fly. Because if you do, the captions won't match up. Now, sometimes, as I'm writing, I'll think of memes that I want to put into the final video. Because the script will eventually be the caption file, you'll need to include anything that external speakers say as well. Now that the script has been written, I prepare the slides. One thing that often trips people up is that they try to cram too much information on a single slide. That's true even for normal in-person presentations, but it's even more of a problem for video presentations. Think about it. Your slides will not be displayed on a huge projector. They might be shown on a tiny smartphone. But the trade-off is that people can always pause the video if they want to dwell on something, or change the playback to 0.5 speed. So you can have more slides with less content. Now, as you go through the process of generating slides, you'll often discover new explanations or elaborations that you would want to put into the script. I find that this is especially the case for explaining equations. After the slides are there, I realize that people might confuse t and tau, so I add a little bit more to the script, thinking about how I would actually talk through the slide once it's created. Okay, now you're ready to record. I usually record in my home office, but sometimes I've recorded in hotel rooms, in my garage, or in my in-laws' basement. Now, the last two videos didn't look that bad because I used a green screen, and I also used that in my home office. If you don't do a green screen right, it can get pretty janky. The secret is, 1, use the same camera for both shots. 2, have the same angle for both shots. 3, make sure that the green screen is well lit behind you. Don't get too close to it, because otherwise you're going to cast shadows, and that will show up on the recording. Finally, if your green screen isn't big enough to cover all of your background, make sure that it doesn't cast a shadow on your background, because then it will make compositing harder. One thing that I like about the green screen setup is that it allows me to have either my normal office background behind me or pure white, or the Swiss countryside. So to have my office as the background but to have slides in front of it, I just record a couple of minutes of footage with the same lighting and background, and then use that as the bottom layer of my final video. Slides go on top of that, and then me. And if I pull up the green screen, the slides go away and you see the background. The only tricky bits of this are making sure that you don't bump the camera or screw up the angle or accidentally walk through the background footage. Okay, so then I record myself reading the script that I wrote. I use a teleprompter. You can set a small screen in front of a half mirror and then read directly off of that. But thanks to the magic of a teleprompter, it looks like you're staring directly into the camera. And you're far enough away that your eyes don't have to move to read. Those motions are called saccades in the linguistics lingo. If you read directly off of a laptop screen right in front of you, it's much more obvious that you're reading. You can see the eye movements. The other challenging part of this is having emotion and excitement while you're reading. Many people focus too much on not screwing up and reading every word exactly as written. Let go and enjoy the process and have some excitement and energy. Certainly don't read with a monotone inflection. You probably want 20% more than how you talk in real life. That said, you are going to make mistakes. But thanks to the magic of editing, if you mistake a make, you can just record the line and nobody will know that you goofed. But thanks to the magic of editing, if you make a mistake, you can just re-record the line and nobody will know that you goofed. To make editing easier, I pause every so often and either clap once or twice. Once if I'm okay with what came before, twice if I know I screwed up. Sometimes I'll record a section multiple times so that the poor schmuck editing it, usually me, has to choose which is better. And so this is another reason why the script is nice. You can go through and see what was supposed to be said. You'll notice that I haven't mentioned the slides. I'm not recording those now. I used to do it at the same time as recording the presentation, and I still do that if I'm recording with somebody else, because I can pay attention to the slides when they're talking. But if I'm talking the whole time, it's too much for one person. If I try to advance slides at the same time as recording, the following things happen. I look at the slides too much, which doesn't look good. I'm not making eye contact with the camera. I get distracted trying to make sure the right slide is being shown. Or I end up saying the wrong thing because I'm reading the slide instead of the script, and my brain gets all confused. Or I lose track of where I am on the script and the teleprompter is relentlessly going forward and I need to adjust it. Another problem is that if I'm clicking on the slides, it gets picked up by the microphone and that's annoying. I also put all my videos and memes in the slides. For example, embedding a YouTube video in Google Slides. It makes for easier recording, and if I screw up something, I can fix it in editing. To make it easier for me to stand next to the slides, I prepare the slides in a 4:3 aspect ratio, a little bit narrower than widescreen. Because most web video is widescreen, 16:9, I can stand next to them without blocking too much content. A few words about equipment. You don't have to shell out a ton of money, but a couple of really cheap things dramatically improve your recording. I'd say get an external microphone, a tripod, and a teleprompter. In that order if you can't afford all of them. And then the next step is to move on to a green screen. But that is optional, I think. You can still do a pretty good job just having nice backgrounds, but you need to be choosy about what you have. Outdoor scenes, interesting bookshelves, something like that works well. You can get cheap versions of all of the things that I mentioned for under $20, and even the cheap version is really an improvement over not having it. So what I do now that I have myself recorded is I play that recording and then use a screen recorder like OBS, QuickTime, or Ink2Go, and then advance the slides in time to what I'm saying. And the frequent clapping will help you line things up. Okay, now that everything is recorded, it's time to edit. I use Adobe Premiere for editing. If you're just starting out and if you have a Mac, then iMovie is actually pretty good and usually enough for what beginners need to do. However, it has some limitations, and you should probably graduate eventually out of that once you get a little more practice. But if you're at the University of Maryland or other fine institutions of higher education, then you might be able to get Adobe Premiere for free, as in your tuition is paying for it, which is why I use it. So I'm going to describe my workflow in Adobe Premiere. Things might look a little different for other editors. The first thing that you're going to want to do is to trim all of your files so that they start at the same point. Clapping is really helpful for that. Then what I like to do is to create a couple different compositions, which I'll call views going forward. A version of me standing in front of the slides, a side view with an additional camera. You may not have this, and I don't even know if I need this. And then a view of just the slides by themselves. Notice that the slides are in all of these views, so I make a special sequence of just the slides so that they can be linked in all of the views. You can think about this like an include file if you're doing compilers. For both the front and the side views, it's again me in the front, slides in the middle, and then a background. The background is either just pure white or an office background. In theory, I could do both. I haven't done that before, but I just might start. It's a good idea. Then I create a multi-camera sequence for these three views. This means that I can quickly switch between which sequence is being shown by just pressing 1, 2, or 3 on my keyboard as I'm editing. Then as I edit, I first remove all of the mistakes. I then take a pass to fix any slides that I got wrong, either timing or content. Finally, I select which camera angle to use at any given point in time in my video. If one of the cuts to remove a mistake was too jarring, or I look away from the camera, that's a good excuse to use a different camera angle. I also sometimes use full screen slides when there's something I might want to particularly highlight. This is something really important you should look at and to know. One thing I do that makes life a little bit easier is that I never remove content from any of the views themselves. They're fixed to the timeline of whatever source has the best sound, my external microphone. So if I change the slide, I just line it up with what I'm saying. All of the editing happens on the appropriate view track so that I can always switch up the sources if I want. When I'm recording with someone else, for example, we need to make a virtual conference talk, I ask them to follow these procedures. First, create the script like I talked about before. 2, record with a green screen. 3, create a first pass of the video edit in Premiere. If they do all of this, the green screen lets us look like we're close together even if we recorded separately. This was very helpful during the pandemic. And thanks to everything is in Premiere, I can take a pass on the editing, knowing that things are pretty much as I expect them. After you've edited, you then need to upload it to something like YouTube. And your script can get automatically Viterbi aligned to what you're saying, so that you just copy paste your whole script and then you have perfect captions. Now, there's a lot more to editing video than what I'm talking about here, and I'm not the person to teach you how to do it. There are plenty of YouTube videos and tutorials and channels on that. Link to some in the description. But my goal was to tell you how I prepare my videos. Hopefully this will be useful to you and to help you when you need to make a video. And if you have suggestions for how I can make my videos better, please leave them in the comments. This is just one video from a course that I'm teaching. If you want to get the whole context, check out the course webpage, linked below. There you can find all of the videos in the right order. YouTube likes to show you older videos out of order, homeworks, exercises, and recommended readings. And if you want to help other people find videos like this, please be sure to like and subscribe to provide a big gradient to the algorithm.